Hello YouTubers, this is going to be as concise a short video as I can make it on this Canon G4210 printer. The problem I had is a week ago I tried to print something and found out that the ribbon that contains the ink in here was depleted of ink. It's not new. For anybody familiar with this tank printer, if you don't use it for a while, you're going to have to do an ink flush. Sometimes maybe the cleaning that you find under maintenance will work. Ultimately, if you have not used this printer in a long time, you're going to have to do an ink flush to get it working again. And it's probably a good idea to print something every so often. I'll cover that in a second. But and in fact, I'll point it out right here. This is the kind of thing I like to print because it uses all the colors and a lot of it. Keeps your printer, let's say, fully lubricated, if you want to put it in those terms. Anyway, I was going to mention this later, but let's just do that. So what happened is once I got the ink flushed, then the printer threw a code on me when I tried to print. And that code is 5B00, and then it said C manual, and it ceased to print. And finding out on other YouTube videos, it simply means the ink absorber pads, the waste pads, are full. And I decided I'm going to try to deal with that. I took them out. Believe it or not, in this printer there's 3 of them. The one over here on the right, I rinsed that out just to see what I could do with it. It's a very time-consuming process. There's a lot of ink absorbed into it. The printer is over 5 years old. There's 5 years worth of any printing we've done on it, which isn't really like some people would. But these 2 pads here, which are smaller, are still loaded up with ink. I don't think I want to mess with that type of stuff again. I don't even want to put them back. It's an ugly job. So I tried to think, what could I come up with for these 2 problems, for the code and for the pads. The code took a lot of research and watching videos. If you have to do what I did, you'll find there's many of the videos from foreign places that are not useful. They don't work with this printer. However, there is one out there, and I did put a link to that description, or let's say the link is below my description here for that video. And that's important because if you can't reset the counter, the ink counter, the printer just won't work. And once you do follow his directions, you'll get these copies. You'll have to make a copy. It's all in the it's all in the video that he does, and effectively you'll end up resetting the printer back to 0, the ink waste counter, as it was at one point 100%, which means it's not going to take any more ink. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. Personally, it's just a program to measure use of the printer, something that Canon's done with ink cartridges in the past. But there's no ink cartridges in this printer to deal with, so that one problem is gone. So now we've got this problem. Well, once you reset that with the video that I'm going to put a link to, then you have to decide how you're going to deal with these pads, because you can keep using the printer, but that doesn't change the situation with the pads. My thought was they either have to be cleaned or replaced, and I did order a generic set which won't fit like this. A couple of them are not the same size, and I thought I would just jam them in there, thing like that, but I haven't received them yet. However, I thought I'd take a different look at it, see if I could do something different. So that's what I'm going to show you right now. On this particular printer, there's 2 screws that hold the back plate on. Once you've lifted that off, you're going to be looking at this device here, which did fit in right here. It's just a lot of plastic that doesn't really have much of a function. There's a tab over here that my thumb is on that you have to release to get this to move, and then it just swings out. But it's trapped in place over here, and even if you take this screw that's above there out, it's not going to release this. You'd have to take these panels apart, and I'm not about to take this printer apart any more than this. So I decided to cut this off right there and swing some wiring up above. Not a big deal. Then I wanted to see what I could do, and incidentally, the two hoses, the waste hoses, ink waste hoses you see there, fit into here on this piece, and all they're doing is just directing the ink down into the pads that sat down below here, or you did sit there. That's the pads I showed you. Anyway, the printer functions just fine, and I presume as long as these two hoses for the ink are allowed to drip down into this area, no issues. I just had to find, if I didn't want to use pads, I had to find another method to do it, and this is what it is. I'm using kind of like a mint can container, and I cut it into place here. Won't get into that. It's not really that easy for a person that doesn't do this stuff on a handyman basis, but it allows me to collect the ink in here. Since I just printed that one paper I showed you, nothing came out of here. There's no ink flow in here at all. It's when you do an ink flush that you're going to get a lot of ink in these pipes, as you want to call them. And that's really all I need to say about that. As to when the ink counter will reach full again, don't know. It doesn't really relate to these sponges down here. They probably could have absorbed more than they have at this point, but I don't want to be troubled with cleaning up any mess or dealing with those pads. I think what I'll do when I get the one that I've ordered, I'm just going to cut a profile of this can and stick it in there just so it kind of flows in there real nice and stays, doesn't splash around or whatever. I'll have to think about that. Meanwhile, if you feel real handy and you want to try something unique, like I say, a redneck way of dealing with this is my method for doing it. It doesn't really extend out much, but you can look down in here when the printer's put together and keep an eye on it, because you'll have to, and you have to remove it when it's got a certain amount of ink in there so you don't spill it. That was my way of dealing with this, and that's really all there is to this video. It's how to conquer the 5B00 code, which actually another YouTuber has done, and I'm going to give him the courtesy by putting that link in my description. And then whatever you want to do with the pads, which this was my solution, and that's really all I've got to say. Thanks for watching.